Now on Indianapolis This Week.
I accept your nomination for President of the United States.
History made in Philadelphia as Hillary Clinton becomes the first female major party presidential nominee. But what about Bernie Sanders supporters? We'll ask an Indiana delegate behind Indy for Bernie if the DNC did enough to get them behind Clinton's campaign. And a new governor's race, Gregg versus Holcomb. We sit down with the state's Republican chairman, Jeff Cardwell, who takes us behind the GOP committee's closed-door decision.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
And welcome to Indianapolis This Week. From the race for the White House to that new race for Indiana governor, we got you covered today. And let's start right here with the Republicans' new candidate for governor, Eric Holcomb.
Ready to answer this next call and lead us to victory and ready to take Indiana to that next level.
Holcomb, of course, replaces Governor Mike Pence on the ballot, the choice of a 22-member Republican State Central Committee. He named Auditor Suzanne Crouch as his running mate on Friday. She'll be confirmed Monday. Our Katie Hines has a look at the campaign now between the newly set field of candidates now underway.
The economy, pre-K, and fixing the state's roads and bridges. They're already shaping up to be major issues and priorities just days into this campaign.
We cannot allow our state to slip and drift and go backwards to those days of debt and delayed payments to schools or unfunding important and critical infrastructure projects.
It's about someone to bring us together, Indiana, rather than focusing on divisive social issues. So there's a big difference between myself and Mr. Holcomb.
The Republican and Democratic candidates shook hands while meeting for the first time on the campaign trail. They discussed their plans for economic development in rural communities. With fewer than 100 days until the November election, it's a race to get their message out.
I'm going to reach out to everyone. Even if I don't agree with their position on a certain specific issue. But this table is big. I want folks to have a seat at the table. I won't sacrifice my core principles, but we need to oar together. We have got this state pointed in the right direction, and I continue to lead it in that fashion.
Traveling around, listening to Hoosiers is really kind of the key to this, and that's why we've come up with a 35-point economic development plan, $3.2 billion infrastructure plan, and a pre-kindergarten program. It's from listening to Hoosiers. This is what they want. Again, it's about serving the people.
Gregg arguably has the advantage in time and money. Holcomb says he's concerned but confident he can raise the millions needed to execute his campaign plan. Back to you.
We want to welcome in Jeff Cardwell, the Indiana State Republican Chairman. Chairman Cardwell, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Great to see you as always. Let's talk about Eric Holcomb now. What does he bring to the ticket going forward?
Well, he brings decades of service to the state of Indiana, both on the local level and the state level. Brings a lot of new energy. You know, he's a veteran of the U.S. Navy, but he's had the time to really spend under some of Indiana's best leaders, Governor Mitch Daniels, Governor Mike Pence, and also U.S. Senator Dan Coates. And so he has a legacy of service in Indiana.
Take me behind the closed-door meeting this past week. Had to be tough. You said it was a tough choice. You had some good candidates there for the committee.
Well, we're really blessed. We had a very deep bench. We had 4 very highly qualified candidates, and so it was a tough decision for the 22 members of the Indiana State Committee. But in the end, Eric Holcomb won that, and we're just excited, and we're ready to hit the ground running.
What's the challenge that he has with a little more than 3 months to Election Day now, from a fundraising standpoint and simply a campaign logistical standpoint?
Well, again, he's got decades of service across Indiana, so he's well known with all of the Indiana GOP across the state. But there's a lot of work ahead of him, and we're all ready and willing to jump in and help. It's just a little over 100 days left, but we're very excited, and we look forward to this campaign season.
You and Governor Pence are close. Were you surprised that he joined Trump on the ticket, and how do you think he has done so far as the two have been out on the campaign trail since the convention?
Well, I think he's done fantastic. They have great chemistry together. Here you've got someone with Governor Mike Pence. He served 16 years in the public sector, 12 years of that on Capitol Hill, 10 years in the Foreign Relations Committee, and then he served 4 years as governor in the public sector. And in that, he's been focused on job creation, economic development, and growth, pro-business, and he's been doing a great job creating an environment of jobs and economic development in the public sector, cutting red tape. Here you have Donald Trump, who has spent his entire career in the private sector, creating jobs, economic development, economic growth, and he's known not only across the United States but around the world for his job creation. And I think with the Trump-Pence team, you have the ultimate public-private partnerships that's going to bring public-private partnership solutions to America on day one, creating jobs and economic growth.
On a personal level, you were there in Cleveland with your family. Talk about that from that perspective. That had to just be a cool moment.
It was a very exciting moment. For me personally, it was an emotional moment. It was a dear friend. We've been very close friends for a long, long time. But it's just very proud, not only of Mike Pence and his family, but it's just a moment of pride for all Hoosiers. Mike Pence is, he's just a great leader, great friend, but he's accomplished a lot, and he's always led with that servant's heart. And he's there. He could be doing so many other things, just like Donald Trump. They're both great professionals, very successful in their careers. There's a lot of other things they could be doing, but they're making great sacrifices with their families to be in public service. And so we're just elated and very proud of him and his family.
A final question for you. Donald Trump himself had talked about the importance of unity coming out of the convention in Cleveland. As you departed Cleveland, did you feel that the Republican Party was now finally unified behind Donald Trump going forward?
Absolutely. Everyone was very excited, very proud. I mean, everyone there left elated and ready to go to work, and everybody, all the teams are on the ground. I know here across Indiana, we have the Trump-Pence team on the ground. Very exciting times. We're connected with the rest of the teams across the United States, and you're going to see a lot of excitement, a lot of new ideas, and we are going to continue to talk about the law and order campaign and making America safe again. That's going to be a theme as we make America great again.
Mr. Chairman, as always, pleasure to have you here this morning.
Thank you very much.
After a quick break, Bernie or bust? In the city of brotherly love, did Clinton win over Sanders supporters? We're going to catch up with an Indiana delegate in Philly next on Indianapolis This Week.
So, on this episode of The Apprentice, we can say last week they conspired, but their ideas misfired. Their bigotry is tired, their attacks are uninspired, so Mike Pence and Donald Trump, you are officially fired.
The Democrats, including Indiana Congressman Andre Carson, there in the spotlight in Philly this past week, trying to make the case to undecided voters that Hillary Clinton should be our nation's next president. But in the midst of those primetime speeches from the current president and first lady, VP nominee Tim Kaine and presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, an ongoing effort to bring Bernie Sanders supporters into the fold there in Philly. In the midst of it all, the resignation of Democratic Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Some Republicans called it all chaos. Pushback from delegates, even against Sanders himself, who called for unity in the wake of the leaked email scandal, appearing to show that Clinton had been favored by party leaders during the primary process. But Sanders, along with other speakers, stepped up to try to make the party whole behind Clinton's candidacy.
That based on her ideas and her leadership, Hillary Clinton must become the next president of the United States.
We all need to be as vocal and as organized and as persistent as Bernie Sanders supporters have been during this election.
I want to thank Bernie Sanders. Bernie, your campaign inspired millions of Americans, particularly the young people who threw their hearts and souls into our primary. You've put economic and social justice issues front and center where they belong. And to all of your supporters here and around the country, I want you to know, I've heard you. Your cause is our cause.
Let's find out if it worked. We want to welcome in Elizabeth Hyde, one of the volunteer coordinators for Indy for Bernie and a Democratic delegate from Indiana there in Philadelphia this past week. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier that this was kind of your first foray into politics with the Bernie Sanders campaign. Why'd you jump on board?
Well, I'm in general an optimistic person, you know, very golden retriever attitude toward life, but for politics, I was pretty cynical, you know, pretty concerned about gridlock, pretty concerned about whether politicians really were very capable of remembering why they got into this in the first place. And Bernie Sanders, last August, he just sort of cracked that shell. He sort of broke that political cynicism. And I said, you know what? All right, fine. Somebody's fighting the good fight after they've been around for, you know, that many years. That's powerful. That's something where I feel like, hell with it. I'm 26. I can get to work when somebody's been keeping the faith for that as long as he has.
There was a big push over the past week there in Philadelphia to get those Bernie Sanders supporters on board with Hillary Clinton. You heard it from Bernie Sanders. You heard it on Wednesday from the president. You heard it Thursday from Hillary Clinton as well. Do you think that that helped to unite the party behind Clinton going forward?
If I hear the phrase unite the party one more time, I might scream. A party is never really truly united exactly because it's a group, it's a coalition. You're going to have your far left side, your far right side of any party. You're going to have your people who are more establishment, your people who are more activist. You're going to have your people who are concerned about a million different issues that are most important to them. And so unify the party isn't really so much about getting every single person to be in the exact same place. It's about getting every single person to want to actually be at the table. And the Bernie Sanders supporters, regardless of whether they are 100%, you know, I'm with her at this point, they want to be at the table. They want their voices heard. They want to make some, you know, big progressive action. So I would say that this week has just revved people up more, and people are going to keep fighting really hard for this platform and for the ideas that they've, you know, been fighting for months and months.
Elizabeth Hod, we thank you so much for your time. Have a safe trip back to Indiana from Philadelphia.
Thanks, Jason. Have a good morning.
After a quick break, predicting Clinton's post-convention bounce in the polls and who wins, Gregg versus Holcomb. Our insiders are standing by next here on Indianapolis This Week.
So, my friends, it is with humility, determination, and boundless confidence in America's promise that I accept your nomination for President of the United States.
There you have it. That history made in Philadelphia this week as Hillary Clinton accepted the Democratic nomination for president, officially becoming the first woman to win a major party's nomination. Let's welcome in our political insiders now. Mary Beth Schneider, Laura Beck for the Democrats, and our favorite conservative commentator, Abdul Hakim Shabazz. That is in his contract, the favorite part. For those
much to the dismay of some folks on Twitter.
They were wondering.
What are you talking about here?
You need to get with your agent ASAP.
Well, there we go.
Let's talk about the Democratic convention in Philadelphia and compare it to the Republican one in Cleveland a week ago. Mary Beth, compare and contrast the two.
There was absolutely nothing that was the same. And the weirdest thing, I think, for many of us who have been to a lot of conventions in the past was that the Democrat convention was very much like Republican conventions of the past. A lot of flag waving, a lot of appeals to faith and family, a lot of honoring of police and veterans, some very moving stories, including, I think, probably one of the speeches of the convention from the immigrant Muslim father of an Army captain killed in, I think, in Afghanistan, or maybe, no, I'm sorry, Iraq.
In Iraq.
It was very moving, and at the same time with that, there was coupled a real sense of optimism going forward, to the point that Donald Trump is bashing them, saying they're ignoring the terrible problems. But in the Republican convention, terrible problems was pretty much all they focused on. They didn't follow up with the positive, uplifting message that you needed to go forward with.
Laura, as our resident Democrat, you had to have been loving this past week.
It was a great convention. It really was, and I think it's one of the best conventions I've ever seen. I had the privilege to go to the 2004 convention, and that was a pretty good one. But watching this, they just flawlessly executed it, and it really built the narrative every single night of real Americans telling real stories. And contrasting that with the Republican convention, it was doom and gloom. It was angry. And when you looked at, they panned the crowd, I think that was also, I felt like you were looking at America at the Democrat convention, whereas you were looking at a lot of really angry people when you were watching the Republican convention. So it was a striking difference between the two.
All right, Abdul, the floor is yours, my friend.
How great it was.
Well, no, actually, no. I know the Democrats actually had a really good convention, particularly if you look at how they started out earlier in the week, because no one's really quite sure what the Bernie Sanders people were going to do, where they were going to go. I mean, luckily for the Democrats, they got most of the Bernie Sanders people back on board toward the end, except for the handful that are, could actually learn a lesson from Taggart on maturity and how to behave in a room in a room full of adults. But I do think the challenge for the Democrats is the mood of the country, because a lot of people still think the country is going in the wrong direction. And so the question is, will that message of hope and optimism and positivity, will that be able to connect with the voters of the country that really think things are going the wrong way? We might want to say Democrats might be how we may aspire to be, but Republicans were how we are.
You can see that video right there. Clinton and Obama on stage together, hugging each other. A rare moment in a presidential race to have the incumbent president with approval ratings relatively high this late in a second term. The nominee literally embracing that right there in front of the nation. So for those that don't like President Obama, and there are more than enough people out there, this doesn't help Clinton's cause. What about what she had to say, though, on stage? Do you think that she delivered the right message?
I want to disagree. I think it does help her cause. The people who don't like him were not going to be for her anyway.
Very true. Very true.
That is maybe that 35-38% that are locked in on the Republican side. But when he have approval ratings over 50%, I think that's a real stamp of validation.
And I think 90% among Democrats right now.
90% among Democrats, right. And her speech, for her, that was a good speech. She is not a good speech.
She's not Barack Obama.
No, she's
right.
She's not Michelle Obama.
Not Michelle Obama, Joe Biden, they all gave absolutely knocked it out of the park speeches. But I do think she did a lot towards what she needed to do to make people feel that, you're listening to all this shouting and anger on this side, calm, forward thinking on my side, and a killer line when she talked about somebody who can be baited with a tweet, having control of nuclear arms.
A simple message in there. Quick prediction, post-convention bounce for Clinton coming out of this ballpark. 2 points, 3 points, 5,
7, but it won't last.
I'd say probably 4.
Abdul?
I'll give it 3 to 5.
All right, while the Democrats were in Philadelphia, Mike Pence and Donald Trump back out on the campaign trail. Mike Pence really in the Rust Belt states so far, as the two candidates have kind of gone their separate ways as they try to cover more ground. As you have watched Pence out there on the campaign trail post-convention, anything that has surprised you, anything that has stuck out to you so far?
I mean, the governor is basically, he is who he is. And, well, I like Mike. What will be interesting to see is how do you reconcile the Trumpisms and try to bring it back for that Mike Pence, sort of Midwestern, that's really not what Donald Trump meant. He was being sarcastic when he said, the Russians should hack into Hillary Clinton's email.
Which is stunning.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of that. Is a colleague of mine said Mike Pence running for VP is going to be a shovel-ready project because a good chunk of what he's going to do is kind of clean up after Donald Trump. We saw a little bit of that this week. There's going to be a lot more, but I think overall Pence really will help the Trump ticket.
He's going to have to really watch his brand. I mean, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Christian, whatever, however he says it. That's what he has put himself out there for, that brand. And I think his brand is going to be really tarnished by hanging out with Donald Trump because Donald Trump is so unpredictable that you just don't know what he's going to do, and you don't know what he's going to say. And I don't think he has a lot of loyalty to the people around him. So I think he's going to continue to put Pence in a bad spot. And how Pence has to recover from that is going to be tough because Mike Pence is not that great when he's unscripted.
Mike Pence said Friday that there's no place for name-calling in political campaigns, and that is probably what Mike Pence believes. But he's with the guy who tweets out name-calling and insults every day. I don't know how Mike reconciles that.
He's got 100 days left to figure it all out there.
I think there's there's a direct line to Jesus right
While the governor's on the campaign trail right now, a new governor's race back here at home in Indiana right now with Eric Holcomb taking on John Gregg. Holcomb naming a running mate on Friday as well. Abdul, going forward from this point out, how do you see this race unfolding?
Republicans have new life in a new ticket. You got Suzanne Crouch, more likely to be named lieutenant governor candidate. You got somebody who's won statewide, actually was the highest vote getter in 2014. She can raise a ton of money.
She's your Glenda Ritz.
Loved by, but except she's actually liked and loved by the legislature, knows what she's talking about.
Stop.
And has better glasses on top of it. Yeah. So no, Suzanne Crouch is a rock star in the Republican Party, and that is just what the Republicans need to have, that clean slate, new start. And if I were John Gregg and Christina Hale, I would be really worried because the pendulum is shifting the other way.
Laura, 20 seconds left.
I think they're going to have a tough time. 100 days is a very short amount of time to put together what they need to put together, and they're a little hampered right now by the money. So I think this one is going to be leaning to Gregg. We've seen leading political commentators put it out there, so I think we're going to see it leaning in that direction.
Final word, Mary Beth.
Close race, and Suzanne Crouch was an excellent choice.
You heard it here, Mary Beth. Laura Abdul, thank you so much for joining us as always. Follow us along on social media as well right now. Our new Facebook page is there, and on Twitter at Indy This Week. We'll be right back.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Starrentino. Here's what we're working on right now at RTV6. A 17-year-old admits he was goofing around when he caused a big scare in the Columbia Club on Monument Circle. He somehow got into the elevator shaft and got stuck upside down and pinned in between the elevator and the shaft wall. 2 workers at the hotel were then stuck in the elevator when it shut down. Firefighters rescued all 3. The teen was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. And today is the last hurrah for a number of city pools. 13 pools are closing up shop tomorrow morning. Those pools are listed on your screen right now, but all is not lost. Several locations offer indoor swimming lessons and classes throughout the year. 5 city pools will remain open through the week. And remember, you can stay up to date on all the latest breaking news on the RTV6 app.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We want to take a quick moment here to congratulate someone you have seen on television for years right here on RTV6. After 40 years, 8 months, and 20 days, senior reporter Jack Reinhart retired Friday. Jack's been a force to reckon with for decades here in Indianapolis, a reporter known for being fair, balanced, and trustworthy. Jack started his career at RTV6 on November 10, 1975. During his 4 decades in Indianapolis, he's broken thousands of stories and covered hundreds of exclusives. We wish Jack the best in his retirement. RTV and Indianapolis, thank you, Jack, for your hard work, dedication to this community. And thank you for joining us here on Indianapolis This Week. For Raphael, Katie, and our entire team, have a fantastic Sunday, everyone.